Good morning. Happy Sunday. This morning we have some really good news for you. Mindy Gale has organized a virtual coffee hour for after the service. Some of you who were watching last Sunday may remember that coffee hour. And we will make this a regular part of our after service, just like in the good old days. And Mindy has sent us some information about that coffee hour, and there it is. So this morning, some of you may have noticed the title of our service is the Sermon on the Mount for Heretics, Part 1. And you may be wondering if you have something better to do right now than to listen to somebody going on about Jesus, because you thought you left all that behind. Well, a lot of us have kind of come from a difficult background like that. Post-dogmatic stress disorder, PTSD we call it. And I'm hoping maybe give me a chance. In this service, maybe we can surprise you. Welcome to Sunday morning. Our opening words are from Lord Irwin. He was the colonial leader in the British Raj in India, back before India won its independence. And he once asked Mahatma Gandhi, he said, "Mr. Gandhi, man to man, tell me what you consider to be the solution to the problems between your country and mine." Gandhi picked up a Bible. He opened it up to the 5th chapter of Matthew. And he said, "When your country and mine shall get together on the teachings laid down by Christ in this Sermon on the Mount, we shall have solved the problems not only of our country, but of the whole world." Our opening hymn is number 1053, "How Could Anyone?"
Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday morning to you. I am happy to be back in the sanctuary here at UU Augusta. I have been out of town for quite a few weeks, but I am back now. And our opening hymn this morning is number 1053, "How Could Anyone?" And we'll be singing it twice. Please sing along with me at home. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? How could anyone fail to notice that your loving is a miracle? How deeply you're connected to my soul. How could anyone ever tell you you were anything less than beautiful? How could anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? connected to my soul.
Our principle today is the seventh principle. This is by Reverend Forrest Gilmore. Our seventh principle may be our Unitarian Universalist way of coming to fully embrace something greater than ourselves, the interdependent web expressed as the spirit of life, the ground of all being, the oneness of all existence, the community-forming power, the process of life. The creative force, even God, can help us develop that social understanding of ourselves that we in our culture so desperately need. It is a source of meaning to which we can dedicate our lives.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
This is the time of our service when we share our joys and sorrows. And this is a very difficult time for us, as Reverend Don has said many times. Just when you think it can't get any more complicated, it just seems to get more complicated. I'd like to drop the first stone in, as he does, for all of us in the congregation. As the Buddhists say, may we all be free from suffering and the root of suffering. We don't have any written joys and sorrows to offer this Sunday, so let's continue. For all those who we disagree with and who are causing problems in our opinions in our society at this time, we offer a stone of compassion. May all of these people who we disagree with be free from suffering and the root of suffering. For those right now who have lost loved ones to the plague or who are themselves suffering with difficulties from the plague, may they be free from suffering and the root of suffering. So we're taping this right now in an empty sanctuary on Thursday night. We usually tape this on Friday night. Right now, it's about 7:45. I came in this building about 6 o'clock carrying my video equipment and stuff in to help set up shop in here. And I always come in through the kitchen door. I always come in through the back door by the kitchen. And for all the years that I've ever come to service here, I've always come through the kitchen door. And when I come through that door, the first thing that happens is I smell this church. I smell it. It's not a good smell. It's not a bad smell. It's a smell of identity, the way a dog might smell it. And I smell this church, and it's a feeling of coming to my second home. It's a smell that I know so well. I walk by the common room, and as soon as I walk by the common room, all the ghosts come to me. All the ghosts of all the people that I've met here. These are not the ghosts of the dead. These are the ghosts of the living. These are your ghosts. All of your ghosts. come and gather around me as soon as I walk by the common room into that area where the sofas are, and I smell the church and I start turning lights on. And then I go to the sanctuary, which right now is empty. This church is full of ghosts, full of memories. When the plague started a few months ago, there is a barbecue joint a couple blocks from my house. It's my favorite barbecue joint, Willie Jewell's. And it suddenly occurred to me that if I wanted Willie Jewell's to still be there when all this is over, I needed to give them money. So you see where I'm going with this. I bought barbecue from them a couple times a week, and their doors are open, and now they look like they might get through this. All you ghosts out there listening to this, you need to take care of this haunted house. Your ghosts are here. When I walk by the common room, I see the ghosts of all the classes that we used to have there together and all these different subjects in the evening and the week. I remember hugging all the ladies and standing in line for coffee and looking to see what kind of snacks we were going to have this morning, and look around the room, see if there's anybody new I could sit with, find out who they were. And you had the little kids, the ghosts of all the little kids, your little kids, running in and out of the hallway, sitting with their friends, sitting with their family, all those ghosts whenever I walk by the common room. I want them back. If you want your haunted house to still be here for you when all this is over, you need to take care of it. We had a pretty good deal going here. That deal is in trouble. You need to take care of this deal so you have a place to go. And now's your chance to do that.
Since it's July 4th weekend, our piano solo music this week will be American music. And so I'm going to play part of a piano rag composed in 1970 by William Balkin. It's called The Graceful Ghost Rag.
So let's take a moment, 1 minute of silence together. Our spoken words for this silence come from that wonderful Unitarian Universalist poet Walt Whitman. In Uncle Walt's poem, this is from A Song for Occupations. Will you seek afar off? You surely come back at last. And things best known to you, finding the best or as good as the best. And folks nearest to you, finding the sweetest, strongest, lovingest. Happiness, knowledge, not in another place, but this place. Not for another hour, but this hour. Man, in the first you see or touch, always in friend, brother, nighest neighbor. Woman, in mother, sister, wife. And all else, giving place to men and women like you. I intend to reach them my hand and make as much as them as I do of men and women like you. Our reading this morning is from the chapter number 5 of the book of Matthew, a partial reading of the Sermon on the Mount. And there followed him great multitudes of people from Galilee, and from Decapolis, and from Jerusalem, and from Judea, and from beyond Jordan. And seeing the multitudes, he went up into a mountain. And when he was set, his disciples came unto him, and he opened his mouth, and he taught them, saying, Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they shall be filled. Sermon on the Mount covers 3 chapters in the book of Matthew. We don't have that much time, so that's why this is part 1. So, first I want to explain something where we're coming from. I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian mystic, which is a very specific kind of Christian. Mysticism, most people don't know what that means. You may be a mystic and may not even realize it. When you watch the Star Wars movies, you hear the Jedis going on about the Force, and the Force is this and that and everywhere. Those guys are mystics. Darth Vader, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, those guys are mystics. That's what we're talking about. Mysticism is not a religion. Mysticism is an angle of approach towards subjective reality, the way that you experience the world. All of the world's major religions from their very earliest days have these interior, sort of private practices, contemplative practices, which up until recent times were not really available to most people. Christianity had a tradition of mysticism and contemplative practices up until about 500 years ago. And then the Orthodox Church stamped out a lot of those practices, which were still kept alive by the Franciscans and the Jesuits. Islam has Sufi and the Sufi poets. That is the mystical tradition of Islam. Judaism has the Kabbalah. Buddhism is mystical right out of the box. So, the purpose of contemplative practices is for the purpose of transformation by direct contact with the sacred within ourselves. That is the essence of mysticism. The reason I mention all this is because the Jesus and the Sermon on the Mounts we're talking about this morning are from that viewpoint, not the viewpoint that we grew up with. A mystic, or really a universalist. Remember universalists? We're Unitarian Universalists. Universalists are fundamentally mystics. A universalist, or a mystic of any tradition, usually believes in 4 things. Number 1, a mystic will believe in an inner light, a divine essence which is not created and is indestructible, which is beyond our transient personality or soul. It's you can think of it in science. I like to explain to people that science has traditionally seen energy as being the final state of being and reality, and lately string theory or the quantum field as the source of energy and matter, and that's the final state of being. For thousands of years, mystical traditions have said that there is one more state of existence that is more primal than energy, and that is consciousness. Vast, universal, unmanifested consciousness manifesting itself into energy and forms. You can imagine an ocean of water, and then a wave appears on the ocean, rises up on the ocean. The wave exists in a specific and individual form, but the wave is the ocean. The wave is not separate from the ocean. The wave is the ocean expressing itself in a specific individual form, and that's what you are, and that's what I am. I am that, thou art that, all this is that. And that's pretty much that. The second thing, a mystic, and we're talking about Jesus as this kind of person. The second thing a mystic is going to believe is that it's your birthright as a human being to experience this inner light, this inner essence. You don't have to be a good person. You don't have to be a virtuous person first. This is your birthright to discover truth, beginning within yourself. And what I'm proposing is that when Jesus would speak about the kingdom of heaven in the Sermon on the Mount and other places, he's talking about that. In the Gospel of Thomas, one of the Gnostic Gospels, Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within you, and it's outside of you, and it's all around you. Jesus said, split wood, and I am there. Lift up stone, and you will find me there. He's not talking about a place you go when you die. He's talking about a state of mind. Third thing, transformation. Mystics are not preoccupied with sin. Buddhism especially is not preoccupied with sin. They use the word skillful or unskillful. What a mystic approach to religion and life is about transformation. And it is possible for anybody, no matter what your condition, to experience life-changing transformation, what the Buddha called awakening, enlightenment, what Jesus called being born again. It is that radical. And that this is the purpose of your life, not status or wealth. The purpose of your life is transformation into the kingdom of heaven, or into awakening and seeing reality from the seat of a universal consciousness. And the fourth thing that a mystic or a universalist is likely to believe in is that if you are able to bring this kingdom of heaven as the seat of your consciousness, if you're able to experience awakening and enlightenment, that you will then be able to see that divinity all around you in every living thing. When you read the Gospels, when you read Jesus talking about the kingdom of heaven, he really sounds like a man who's floundering, who's kind of struggling to explain something he can't put into words. It would be like, he sounds like a guy trying to explain what the color blue looks like to a bunch of people who can't see colors and have never seen the color blue. It's like, the color blue is like that cushion. The color blue is like this book. The color blue is like the sky on a sunny day. The color blue is how you feel when you're sad. If you listen, it doesn't make any sense. The color blue is like a vineyard owner. The kingdom of heaven is like a vineyard owner. It's like a man who planted a mustard seed. It's like a father who had 2 sons. It's like a laborer's. He's coming up with all these things that seem to have nothing to do with each other, because what he's explaining is something that he can see but can't put into words. So when I think of these things, I like to say to people that they're not trying to be saved. I want to see what Jesus saw when he looked out on this world. So, the Sermon on the Mount, the first beatitude that we read, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So there, you run into the first problem that you have with the Sermon on the Mount. It isn't true. It doesn't make any sense. Jesus begins making a string of sentences that don't match reality the way that we know it. Blessed are the poor in spirit. They're going to inherit the kingdom of heaven. Why? Because they're poor? What does that even mean, to be poor in spirit? Why can't you be rich in spirit? Isn't that what all the self-help people want you to be, and all the meditation people and yoga teachers? They always want you to be spiritually rich and empowered. And Jesus is saying the poor in spirit, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. That doesn't make any sense. What is he talking about? What does it mean to be poor in spirit? Why would they have the kingdom of heaven compared to somebody else? If you think about it, the way that Jesus parses that sentence is very interesting. He says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Not will be, not pie in the sky when you die, not someday if you're a goody-goody and accept me as your Savior. No. He says, is, like now. A Tibetan bowl chime. Well, blessed are you, for this is your Tibetan bowl chime. Here you go. How about that? Is the kingdom of heaven. You may already be a winner. What does that mean? There's another place in the Bible where Jesus talks like that, and that's when he's being crucified. When Jesus is being crucified, we all grew up with the story. He was crucified between two thieves, one on the left, one on the right. The one on the left is attacking him and mocking him. He says, if you're the Son of God, get down from the cross and take us with you. You can't do it, can you? And the thief on the right, what we were called the good thief, he shouts across back to the other guy. He says, do you not fear God? We are here because we deserve this for what we've done. But this man, he's done nothing. He doesn't deserve this. Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And Jesus said to him, this very day you will be with me in paradise. Interesting. He's not saying that to a priest. He's not saying that to one of his followers. He's saying that to a condemned criminal. This day, when all this is over, before dinner time, you're going to be with me in paradise, you condemned criminal. Why? What is going on there? Is this very day. You have a man, a criminal. We don't know what he did, but it would have had to been pretty bad for him to be put to death like that in front of other people who are, not only do they not pity him, they're using his death for entertainment. What could be more lonely than that? That lonely cross. This criminal is looking back in the last hour of his life. He's looking back on a wasted life. Think of that. He's looking back on a life filled with horrors and violence. The world would have been better if he had not been in it, and nobody's going to miss him when he's gone. That's what he's thinking. And then he looks over at another man who is in the same situation but shouldn't be. I deserve this. I got this coming to me. But he doesn't belong here. That poor guy, crazy Jesus. Jesus, you're going to find your kingdom someday. It's out there waiting for you somewhere. And when you get to your kingdom, think about me once in a while. He feels in the rock bottom of his hell physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain, isolation in the loneliest place on earth, a cross where people are laughing at your suffering. In that moment, he feels compassion for another man who's in the same situation that he's in. He doesn't say, for the grace of God, there go I. He says, no, there I am. And he feels compassion. Jesus looks across to him. He sees a hard heart cracking open under the weight of his failures, of a wasted life. He sees that heart cracking open and the light starting to come in. He sees the blossoming of a man who is poor in spirit, who's got nothing to show, and with nothing in his hands, with nothing in his life, he can feel something compassionate for somebody else. He says, now you got it. Now you understand what I'm talking about. When you've suffered enough, when you have failed enough at enough things, and when your heart has been broken enough by people whom you loved dying or maybe just outgrowing you and leaving you behind, and you feel the weight of your life and you're wondering if your life has been a wasted life, in your downcastness, remember that thief who was the patron saint of a sad life. When you feel the weight of your failures on your shoulders and you wonder what your life is about, you have an opportunity for transformation. Suffering in itself is just energy. But suffering wisely, you will have the opportunity to see the beauty of ordinary people. Just like Walt Whitman is talking about in that poem. You can see the beauty of ordinary people because you realize that every one of them is having a hard time, just like you. And you can feel your connection with humanity. You can look at a broken thing, you can look at a broken person, and if you have the eyes to see, you can see what that thing or that person could be if love were there. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. No, they won't. That's a lot of crap. The meek never inherit anything. The meek are what certain people would call losers. You don't want to be a loser, do you? The meek will inherit the earth. Docile people have never inherited the earth. The earth walks right over them. No. Meek, you mean like gentle Jesus, meek and mild, pick me up, I'm just a child? No. Why did Jesus say something so obviously stupid? In the Bible, there were two kinds of people that Jesus really didn't like. He didn't like rich people who were really full of themselves. He didn't like very religious people who were very full of themselves. Spiritual pride. Why? Spiritual pride is what you see in the first example. Blessed are the poor in spirit. A thief, a condemned criminal, nothing to show for his life, no spiritual pride there. So that's heaven, but the earth. Why would the meek, instead of the rich and powerful, inherit the earth? If you're very rich, or even a little rich, or even if you're just like us, you're always afraid because you always feel like you got something to lose. If you have a lot of possessions that you like, a nice house, nice car, nice kids, nice school, your possessions start to own you. You're always afraid that something's going to happen to lose these things, and things do happen. You take tornadoes. We're getting into tornado season. Tornadoes are a very Buddhist kind of storm. You wake up in the morning, you eat your breakfast at your breakfast table. By afternoon, that table and that house are gone. It can happen that quickly. People who are living a comfortable life like things to stay the same just as they are, and they don't. The Bible says a rich young man came to Jesus. Rich young man came to Jesus. He said, "Master, what must I do to have eternal life?" So he's rich and he wants to live forever too. Some people are never satisfied. Everybody wants to go to heaven, like the song says, but nobody wants to die. What must I do to have eternal life? Jesus did not say, accept me as your Lord and my blood as the atonement for your sins. He didn't say anything like that to him. Jesus said to the young man, he says, I need you to sell everything that you have. Sell all of it until you have nothing. And then you take that money and you give that money away to the poor. So you don't even have that. And when you have nothing left, nothing to defend and nothing to lose, and there's nothing in your life, then you come follow me. Young man couldn't do it. I couldn't do it either. Very few people in history have ever done that. A few people have, not many. In Buddhism, there's a term that I like. Buddhists have a word called paramita. Paramita. Paramita is like an offering or a sacrifice, but it's not just like putting $1 in a Salvation Army bucket. This is an offering that cuts so close to the bone that you can't be the same person after that. It's so deep that you have to change yourself just in order to follow through on that. Transformation. Transformation. That's not as rare as you might think. There are women, especially, I'm thinking of Reverend Gay and a couple of other women in our congregation. They thought that when they reached a certain age that they would be able to enjoy the last years of their life, maybe travel, go to Italy or something. And they had to take care of their grandchild or great-grandchild because something happened to that child's parents and somebody had to do it. So they had to put away all their big plans and bring a little child into their elderly life. That's a paramita. It didn't mean they had to give up everything they owned, but it meant that they had to give up all of their plans. Any of you young people listening to this, if you're still with me, my advice to you is don't make any plans for your life. Don't make any life plans because they're not going to last. The Army has an old expression. The Army says that the best laid battle plans become obsolete on contact with the enemy. It all goes out the window. The best laid battle plans do not survive contact with the enemy, and you'll find that's true about you. If you want to make a life plan, make a philosophy of life. Find out what you believe, because whatever you think you've got planned, something else is going to happen to you. A couple weeks ago, and this is my last point, a couple weeks ago, Ruth McClellan gave a sermon here called Seeing Every Color. If you haven't listened to that service on YouTube, you should listen to it. It's a really good sermon. Wait a minute. I don't want to cough because that scares everybody. Seeing Every Color was about the beginning of the gay pride movement and LGBTQ equality and rights movement. That began with the Stonewall Uprising. I think it was 1971. Here's the point. These were the Stonewall Inn in a kind of seedy area of Lower Manhattan was a place where gay people used to gather to dance and have a good time, and the police would come periodically and raid it and put them all in jail for being gay. And one night they had had enough. and they pushed back, and they fought back against the police and refused to be arrested. The police were following the law. What they were doing, being homosexual and gathering together, was illegal. And they said, we don't believe in that law. And that somebody shouted gay pride. That was the first time anybody said that, and they fought in the street against the police. These were not respectable kind of gay people. These were the kind of gay people that made gay folks embarrassed. The ones who were trying to lay low and be non-threatening and fit in with the straight folks. These were the drag queens and the drag kings, and these were the kind of weird gay folks that understood each other and came together. They were the ones who had nothing to lose. They had nothing left to defend, just like the guy on the cross. They were ready for a change. I propose to you that those are the meek that Jesus is talking about. He's not talking about quiet, docile people that nobody notices. He's talking about people who have just had enough. Like the Bob Dylan song, too much of nothing makes a lamb into a lion, but it can also make a man in high heels into a street fighter. Too much of nothing changes people. One of the genius of Gandhi, and this genius that Martin Luther King learned from him, civil disobedience, they realized that at the center of power, there is a black hole of illusion. Illusion. If somebody just says, I won't obey that law anymore, and if enough people just say, I won't obey that law anymore, yeah, Jim Crow is the law, yeah, segregation is the law, but I'm not going to obey that law because it's a bad law, and I won't do it. And then everybody starts to say, yeah, we won't do it either. That's what you see now in the Black Lives Matter. That's what you see in the Me Too movement. These are people who have had enough. These are the meek. And when the meek, on the edges, on the fringes, when they begin to rise up, the power begins to move inward like a wave. And then the people who feel like they got something to lose, and maybe they were kind of afraid to speak up, they start to discover their backbone and raise their hand and they say, yeah, me too. That law isn't right. And then the illusion of power at the center begins to shake. That is like water wearing down a rock. That is the power of the meek. When Jesus talks about heaven, when he talks about earth, he's talking about authenticity. He's talking about inner freedom, nothing to defend, nothing to lose. He's talking about going from freedom on the inside, becoming the kingdom of heaven on the outside. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. A lot of us are mourning right now, but it's getting late. Maybe we'll do that on another sermon. Amen. Namaste.
Our closing hymn is number 354, We Laugh, We Cry, and we will be singing verses 1 and 3. We laugh, we cry, we live, we die, we dance, we sing our song. We need to feel something here to which we can belong. We need to feel the freedom
closing words are a poem by Rainier Maria Rilke. It's one of my favorite poems. This is called Go to the Limits of Your Longing. God speaks to each of us as he makes us, and then he walks with us silently out into the night, and these are the words that we dimly hear. You, sent out beyond your recall, go to the limits of your longing, embody me. Flare up like a flame and make big shadows that I can move in. Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final. Nearby is the country that they call life. You'll know it by its seriousness. Give me your hand.